Hi guys, it's great to be back for another Pharmacy Friday. Today we're going to be talking about mullein. A little bit of history about mullein, because I love learning the history of these plants, is that Roman legionnaires, and I'm sure lots of people throughout history, have used mullein as a torch. They would dip the flowered end of a mullein stalk into oil, like tallow or some kind of oil, and light it on fire. It's also called Quaker rouge because girls throughout history have used it to rub on their cheeks. It has these fine hairs that aren't bristly when you rub your hands on them, but if you touch that soft part of your skin with them, it can cause your cheeks to redden, and so they would use that to make their cheeks blush. And historically, mullein leaves have been used as shoe insoles for weary travelers, and as diapers and toilet paper for people that are out in the wild. So you're probably seeing mullein starting to grow up everywhere now. I usually see it in ditches along the road or in fence rows. It has really big leaves at the base, and all the way up they get a little bit smaller as they go up. And then it has a stalk that can reach up to 6 feet high. And it has those little yellow flowers at the very top. And those leaves can actually get almost a foot in length. And they're very wide, and they taper off into a point, and they're very velvety and soft. If you touch them, they kind of have little tiny hairs on them. But they're generally very soft, and you can pinch them, and there's moisture inside of those leaves. And then the flowers are yellow, and they're individual little flowers on the tip of the stalk. Mullein is most often used for fighting respiratory ailments. It's really good at bringing moisture into the respiratory tract and soothing those really deep coughs sometimes that you can get. It's an expectorant, and it helps loosen all that mucus and things that you can't really get up on your own when you have either bronchitis or cold or one of those, just a really bad hoarse cough. Mullein is an expectorant, but it's also antispasmodic. When you've been coughing a lot, your body just hurts. Your chest muscles hurt and your stomach muscles hurt. And mullein is really great at not only bringing up all that mucus that's making you cough, but at healing your body so that you can rest and fully recuperate faster. So you want to pick the leaves of mullein before the flowers appear, and because as with most plants, once the plant starts flowering, then all the plant's energy is going to go into making those flowers, making the pollen and the seeds. So before the leaves, or before mullein flowers, is the best time to pick the leaves, because all the energy is going into making those leaves big and beautiful and healthy and strong. And then you will want to dry the leaves to store them. It doesn't take very long to dry the leaves of mullein, even though they are pretty big and they do have a lot of moisture in them. They dry super fast, and then you can just crumble them and put them in a glass jar or a bag and keep them for making tea. So you want to pick the flowers pretty carefully. They're a little bit delicate. You just want to pick each one individually. They don't all come out at once, so they each are kind of in their own little pocket on the stalk. You want to just pick it out. You don't want to bruise them, and you don't want to take out the ones that aren't fully ready to come out yet, because you can go back to the stalk the next day and pick out more flowers. There'll be more opening up. And then you'll want to leave those out on the counter, or you can put them in a dehydrator to dry them also. Mullein tea is really easy to make. You just take a rounded tablespoon of those dried leaves and you steep them in about a cup of water or a mug full of water, hot water, for about 10 minutes. And then you want to strain off those leaves really carefully. Sometimes, especially the fresh ones, if you are using fresh leaves, will have those tiny hairs still on them, and you don't want to be drinking those. Those are just kind of irritating. But if you're using dry leaves, you don't have to worry about that. And some people do use fresh leaves. It's just easier to keep the dried leaves for storage and have on hand whenever you need them. You want to strain those off, and then you can drink Mullein tea all day long. It's generally regarded as safe. You always want to do your research, but of course, I want you to be healthy too, so I'm not going to show you anything that could potentially harm you. Kids can take it, anybody can take it, and you can take it all day long. You can just drink it as much as you need to help get rid of your coughs or to soothe your sore throats. A word of caution though, you might want to add some sort of flavoring like peppermint or chamomile or orange or something, because it does kind of taste like grass. It's not really a pleasant taste, so I always add, especially if I'm giving it to the kids, I'll always add like a little candy cane or an orange peel or something like that to just kind of give it a different, more palatable flavor. To make an oil out of Mullein for fighting earaches, you want to collect the flowers and leave them out on, say, the counter overnight. You don't need them super dry, but they do need to dry out just a little bit. And then you would put them in a jar and cover them with enough olive oil to completely cover them. You don't want them exposed to air, because if they're exposed to air too much, then they can mold, and you definitely don't want that going into your ears. So you could cover them with a cloth, maybe with a rubber band or a piece of string around it. You don't want to use plastic wrap or anything like that, because it'll trap moisture in there. You want it to be able to breathe and let some of that water escape. You'll know it's ready when the flowers start to lose their color and they almost become translucent. So you want to strain off those flowers, and then at the bottom of the jar there might be a little bit of water that is settled, or sediment that is settled, and you don't want to get that into your oil, so you'll carefully pour that oil out into a clean jar, leaving as much of that water behind as possible. And then it's important to shake the jar or stir the jar at least once a day, because you want those flowers to stay submerged, and if they're exposed to air, then they will start to mold after a couple of days. And then that oil can be stored in a cool, dark place for about a year. You always want to label your jars with what they are so you don't get confused. You would use 1 to 3 drops of that oil in the affected ear as needed for pain relief. Now, you don't want to use it if your eardrum is already ruptured. That's pretty dangerous to put anything into your ear once that point has happened. So you want to be careful. You can buy the little medicine jars with the droppers attached, and that works really well because those just fit right onto the jar. You don't want to store the glass or the plastic pip that comes with that dropper inside the oil, because it can deteriorate in the oil. The oil is so strong that it can deteriorate that plastic, and it will make your oil not as potent. Thanks for coming along for another Pharmacy Friday. I'm glad to be back, and I look forward to seeing you here next week.